thought I'd put this video together as an update of what's been going on with me. Many of you have asked and why I haven't been posting videos and where I've been. Well, as you can see, I'm off the trail. It's been about a week and a half since I came home. I needed to find out why I was experiencing so much pain in my right foot. Almost with every step, my foot was just unbearable with the pain. The pain started somewhere around mile 121. Became more pronounced almost with every step and every mile that I was hiking. By about mile 147, or the Table Mountain Truck Trail, I was walking like a decrepit old man. I couldn't put any solid pressure on my right foot without extreme pain. I made it to Paradise Cafe. I had a beer and a burger, okay, a couple of beers, and decided that I would head out, try and make Idlewild, and then rest and ice my foot and see if I could keep going. I really thought I could fight through the pain. I thought once I made it to Idlewild I'd be okay. Barely made it to Idlewild. I limped into town struggling with each step. It was absolute misery. I iced the foot, elevated it, took some ibuprofen, and tried to stay off of it, and just realized that something was wrong. I wasn't sure what it was, but I knew something was wrong. So I set out to come home, go to the doctor, and have it checked. After x-rays and evaluation, my foot was put in a walking boot, and I was handed a pair of crutches and told to stay off my foot for a couple of weeks and come back for reevaluation. So how did I end up on the couch with my foot in a boot and not able to walk? Well, according to the doctor, there were a number of issues that were working against me that caused the injury to my foot. When I went to the doctor, I was wearing the Ultra Temps, the shoes that I was wearing on the trail, when he told me to take my shoe off, and as soon as I did, he took my shoe from me and began to look at my shoe. First thing he did was bend the shoe, check the cushioning on the shoe, took the insert out, looked at the insert that I had. I used the sole inserts. They're a little bit more firm and offer a little bit more cushioning. I really like them, and they fit my feet well. Well, he starts looking at my shoe, and he points out a hole in the heel on the inside of my shoe that had been rubbed from my heel. So he immediately puts the shoe down, takes a hold of my foot, and starts feeling around the heel. And I had a knot about the size of a large marble on the right rear heel portion of my foot. I had experienced a hot spot and put tape on my foot thinking that I was just getting a blister, but that wasn't what it was. The burn in my heel turned out to be my Achilles that was inflamed, as well as the bursa for that tendon. Both the Achilles and the bursa were swollen and inflamed, creating that knot that then in turn rubbed the hole on the inside of my shoe. After the doctor poked around, checked my foot, looked at it, he sent me off to x-rays. The x-rays showed some inflammation of several of the joints of my foot, as well as a number of microfractures to several bones. The doctor said these injuries are caused by overuse. They're caused by wearing shoes that lack support and adequate cushioning, and a number of other things. The doctor asked about the trail, if there were rocks and impediments. When I told him yes, he just kind of shook his head and smiled. I can tell you that the trail is littered with rocks, some of them the size of your fist, and the constant up and down and walking over these rocks and trying to maintain your balance really takes its toll. The shoes that I was wearing, they were comfortable, but they just didn't work for me. I needed more support than was offered by these shoes. As you can see, I'm a beefy guy. My pack was hovering right around 30-35 pounds when you add the water to it. I was carrying usually right around 4.5 liters of water, and then my food, which I normally carried 3 or 4 days worth, put my pack up there around that 35 pound mark. I had switched to the halters back in October, and I really only wore them when I was training for this hike, which was a big mistake on my part. It's a completely different way of walking, takes in different muscle groups, and the tendons and the ligaments, they're all different. I bought into the ultralight mentality when it came to these shoes. I've always been a Merrell guy, and for years never had any issues with my feet or legs wearing the Merrell boots. But I was trying to cut weight and use every advantage I could for this hike, and going ultralight and buying into the trail runner shoe fad. While it may work for other people, it didn't work for me. So 2 weeks in a boot, off my feet, and then a recheck with the doctor. It'll take place in the next couple days. The goal is to be back on the trail mid-May. I'm shooting for May 21st. I plan to skip ahead to Hikertown and head into the Mohave. I ended in Idlewild, so I'll do that section from Idlewild to Mohave at the end of my hike. This will allow me, by going into the Mohave, to get a couple of days of flat, long walking and ease back into the trail, mostly level, head up into Tehachapi and then work my way to Kennedy Meadows. And by the time I get to Kennedy Meadows, I'm hopeful that I'll be ready to conquer the Sierras beyond. When I started my hike, my base weight was an honest 24 pounds. But when you add the water, which 2.2 pounds a liter, carrying 4.5 liters, and then my food weight added to that, which was usually 3 or 4 days worth of food, I was routinely carrying about 30 to 35 pounds. As I hiked, I was evaluating what was in my pack almost every day. Each time I would take things out of my pack, I would try and decide, do I really need this? By the time I got to Warner Springs, I had decided that there were a number of items in my pack that I didn't need. And when I actually jettisoned them, I cut about 6 pounds 9 ounces. Just some of the things that I removed from my pack. I was carrying a pair of long underwear, both tops and bottoms. I cut those. I was carrying an iPad, a 10-inch iPad Pro. That was gone. I was carrying 4 batteries for my GoPro. I didn't need 4. I jettisoned 2 of them. I had 2 microphones. I had a pair of sleep socks. I was carrying my wallet that has my retired badge in it. Didn't sound like a lot, but it weighs a lot. I got rid of a balaclava, an additional light, a jar of Tiger Balm, a ball head that I was using for taking photos. I only used it once, really didn't need it. I had a device for doing time-lapse photography. I realized I just wasn't doing that. For my GoPro, the lens filters, wasn't using them, got rid of those. I had extra charging cables that I really didn't need for electronics. I had a small light for taking video, wasn't using it, didn't need it. And I had 2 pairs of gloves, and I jettisoned 1 pair of those. One of the items I forgot to mention was the camp and water sandals. I jettisoned those. And then I had a Neo stuff sack inflated. Then I looked at my food. I was carrying things that I simply wasn't using. I had a bag of bacon bits. It weighed almost 8 ounces when I weighed it, and I hadn't used it the whole time in almost 2 weeks. I had a baggie of powdered milk. Again, 6 ounces, never used it. A small baggie of almonds, 6 ounces, never touched them. They just weren't being used during my first couple of weeks. Why was I carrying them? Kind of thought that maybe I would need it, and I guess you pack your fears. I wanted to ensure that I had what I needed to eat, and so I was carrying them, and turns out they weren't necessary and I wasn't using them, so they went. I think I pretty much dialed in my pack and what I'm carrying. I was feeling stronger each day, and other than the foot pain, I felt like I was moving at a better pace each day and that I was moving with purpose. I could keep my head down, keep walking, and I was doing pretty good. Unfortunately, the pain got so bad that I could barely walk, and I surely wasn't walking at a pace that was going to allow me to continue. A number of people have asked me about my experience thus far. They asked about the trail, how I felt. I will say that at times the trail was much harder than I expected, and then at other times it's exactly what I expected. The rocks were a killer. Most of those rocks are on steep uphills and steep downhills. They're there to protect against erosion, and some of it's just the nature of where you're at. The desert areas, the mountain areas around the desert, they're rocky, littered with rocks everywhere, and so you really can't get rid of them. I will say these rocks were an absolute pain in the ass. Well, okay, my foot in this case, but they were difficult to navigate at times. Constantly trying to maintain your balance. I rolled my ankle several times. I fell twice because of the rocks. I slipped and lost my balance. One time I ended up in a bush. The other time I ended up on the ground hitting another rock. If you remember, I had a cut on my hand, and on the palm of my hand, the heel of my hand, and my elbow. That was all because of the rocks. Some of the other things that were difficult, some of the stretches, long stretches between water fill-ups was difficult. It was manageable if you paid attention. The second day out, I ran out of water. That was my bad. I realized, and I'll say it again, don't count on water caches. Twice I arrived at water caches to find only 1 or 2 gallons of water at the cache. Both times I needed water. In one case I took a liter because there was only 1 bottle there, and I took half of it and left the other half. So depending on the distance to the next water, that's not a lot, and it can be difficult. If you count on those caches and they're not there, you're in a world of hurt. So I learned to filter and drink water from sources that most of us wouldn't consider normally drinking from. But I carried a drink flavoring to add to those water sources that had an odd taste or had an odor. I used my filter out of Sawyer Squeeze, and if the source was really bad, I would drop a couple of drops of bleach for added protection. I took frequent breaks during the day. This helped a lot. I would stop about every 2.5 hours. I take anywhere from a 15 to a 60-minute break. I take my shoes and socks off, put my feet up on my backpack. I would lay back. If I was in shade from a tree or a rock or something, I was good. If I didn't have that, I broke my umbrella out, and I will say that the umbrella was a godsend. Just putting that up and sitting under it cut the temperature quite a bit. It was a noticeable difference underneath the umbrella. I usually ate something, and then I would try and drink something while I was taking this break. And then every evening or end of the day, I was always trying to stop by 6:30 in the evening. I had just enough light to set up my camp, fix my dinner, and end my day. It made it easier for finding a level spot. Had to force myself to eat a couple of times. It's not always easy. You're not hungry. You're just too tired. But you know you have to eat. So I always tried to eat something before I went to bed. And then I always kept something in my tent, so when I woke up in the middle of the night, I always ate something, usually a bar. In the morning, I always had a hot cup of coffee. I'd add a breakfast drink to that, and usually I would have a thing of oatmeal. That was my morning. For lunch, I'd have beef sticks and sometimes cheese. I'd have other meats, tuna, Spam, and cheese or crackers. I was carrying the pretzel fish. Those seem to work pretty good. I found some cheeses that were individually wrapped. They're a sharp cheddar cheese made by Tillamook. That they're individual wrappings. They're a single serving. You didn't have to keep them refrigerated, and if you kept them in the middle of your pack, they were fine for a week, week and a half, and they were pretty good. I'd eat those again with a beef stick and cheese, and it was a pretty good lunch. I used tortillas with peanut butter. That was okay. I had taken some honey packets that I got from Kentucky Fried Chicken, used those, worked pretty good. Don't eat the peanut butter and tortillas unless you have water. It just doesn't work, trust me. Dinner was ramen with chunk chicken, or I'd add Spam or something else, or I had instant mashed potatoes. Again, I would add chunk chicken, tuna, Spam. Even the beef stick one time, I broke that up, threw it in the mashed potatoes. Those are okay. I had a couple of soups that you just had to add water. The only problem with the ramen and the soups is that the salt content is so high that you get really thirsty when you eat those. And when you're trying to conserve water and you know that you've got 9 miles or 8 miles or 12 miles the next day to the next water source, you have to be careful how much water you use in camp. So I would always try and drink. When I was at the water source, I would load up, sometimes carrying an extra 2 liters in my dirty bag. So there were 2 or 3 times where I carried 6.5 liters just to get to camp, so that the next morning I would have a minimum of 3 liters when I headed out. My tent worked out good. I have the Big Agnes Copper Spur UL1. It's a little cramped at times, but it works well. It held up to some really strong gale force winds one night. It held up to one night of rain. Nothing got wet inside and I wasn't cold. But trying to keep everything inside when it's raining is not a lot of fun because it's so cramped. Probably should have gotten the UL2, but I like the small footprint of the one. I've learned to deal with it. I put the my sleeping bag down at my feet and I just put my feet up on top of it, and that seems to work good. My quilt has worked out perfectly. I was a little skeptical of it in the beginning, kind of worried that I'd be cold. It's part of why I probably had too many clothes. But we had a couple of nights of 30 and below with strong winds, and I've got the Enlightened Equipment Revelation with 950 fill, the 20-degree quilt, a wide version, so it fits me. It kept me toasty warm. I had no issues at all. Didn't feel a breeze, wasn't cold. We had a couple of nights that were in the 40s and 50s. I wasn't too warm. It was just right. I used the Neo Air X-Lite pad. It's comfortable, but I will say, as advertised, it's noisy. So I toss and turn. I'm a side sleeper. And while it didn't bother me, there were a couple of times where other hikers mentioned it in the morning that, man, your pad is loud. Yeah, it is. It didn't bother me. But then again, I wear earplugs also when I sleep, so nothing bothers me. My backpack, the Granite Gear Crown V260, it's worked out really well. Fits me well. It carries the 30-35 pounds that I've been carrying well. I really don't have an issue with it. I like it. So far, so good. I have used my umbrella several times, and I will say that I'm glad I had it. The first couple of days I thought about jettisoning it, but I can tell you that when you get underneath that on a hot day, middle of the day, and you want to take a break, it's a noticeable difference in the temperature. I did jettison my little Z seat. It was too small. Yeah, you could set your butt on it, but if you wanted to lay back, put your feet up, just wasn't small or big enough. So what I did is I took my old closed foam pad, cut it in half, and now I carry that. It covers my torso, so I can sit on it, I can lay on it, and I use it as a doormat for my tent. And it probably weighs about 2 ounces more. But it's made all the difference in the world taking a break. I can actually lay down rather than just plopping my ass down, and if I lay down, my back gets dirty, and with all the sweat, it's a mess. Bottom line, my gear has been functional. It's working as I expected it to. Haven't had any issues with it. My stove works fine and everything else. And I really don't see making any more changes to what I'm carrying. That is until I hit the Sierras, where I have to take on my bear canister and the other tools that I'll need if the snow's still there, ice axe, crampons, things like that. But until that time, I think I'm pretty good. I'll update my status sometime next week after I hit the doctor and I'm reevaluated for the injury to my foot. Again, I'm hoping to be back on the trail by the 21st of May, starting out at Hikertown and heading into the Mohave. I'll start my videos up again then. I'll let everybody know as I get ready to head out, and then when I do head out that, you know, I'm out and about and to start looking for the videos again. Thank all of you for the well wishes, the support, for watching the videos. The comments have been great. I really appreciate them. So until I get back out there, and until next time, have a great day. smile, and ponder this.